Oh, Scott, first off, I want to thank you for coming on. Before we get into any like Delaney Hall conversations and anything on the news, I want people to understand who you are and how did you get into immigration enforcement and what did your career actually look like, Scott?
So, I grew up, I was humble beginnings, man. I'm adopted first and foremost. I was adopted by a Puerto Rican woman and a Polish man, hence my last name. But I later found out that I'm like 86% Sicilian and like 7% French and 3% Greece. And you know how that goes. But anyway,
Yeah.
I grew up in humble beginnings, man. And then, I graduated high school. I was going to go to college. I was at the crossroads, whether I go to college. So I went. It really wasn't for me. So in 84, I joined the Army. I went in, I did about 6 years active, got out, right? The Gulf War kicks off. I go back in. I came back home somewhere around, let's just say, to put it to you, like in 1994 at this point. I joined in New Jersey. I joined the National Guard in New Jersey in like 91. And after that, yeah. So anyway, so through the military, I got hired at the Drug Enforcement Administration in Newark, and I worked there for about 5 years. And I knew at that point I wanted to be a federal agent. Like I knew I wanted to do it. And so at that time, getting into law enforcement was really, really hard. There was no funding. There was nothing. I mean, to become a cop in New Jersey, if you were going to take an exam, you were taking an exam with thousands of people, thousands of applicants back in the day. There was no money. And then finally, Bill Clinton signed the crime bill and people got more money. And then the federal government, started hiring. So I applied to become a special agent with Immigration Naturalization Service, which was the INS. So anyway, I got into it and, I wound up staying there until 2018, until I retired. So I started off as a deportation officer and, I became a supervisor. I became an assistant field office director. I became the deputy field office director in New York City. But in between all of that time, I did a lot of stints like at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center as an instructor for fugitive operations. I taught tactics. I taught physical techniques. And that was it. My career took off. I went down, I did some training, I did headquarters. And then when I retired, I was a deputy in New York City. So it was the second largest field office in the country. When I left New York City, I left in Trump's first term. I didn't wait it out, right? I had enough. And part of that, my decision to retire from ICE at the time, right? Because INS turned into ICE in 2003. Most people think that ICE is a brand new agency. No, but there's people out there that are ill-informed and they don't really know that, they took portions of customs and the enforcement part of customs and the enforcement part of INS and merged them together. And that became ICE. The administrative side of customs and the administrative side of INS became CBP. If that makes sense. Okay?
Yeah. To me, it does.
So anyway, I was deploying. Okay. I was deploying again and I got notified in 2017 that we were deploying a brigade forward to Africa and the Horn of Africa and also Europe. And so what happened was I was the brigade sergeant major at the time. And so, I'm sure
just to clarify quickly, Scott, was that National Guard?
Yes.
So it was going parallel with your law enforcement career in ICE. Yes. I think you were an MP, weren't you? If you don't mind me saying that.
So what happened was, when I was in the regular Army, I was air defense, later transferred over to an MP. I stayed an MP. And then in the 90s, I transferred out and became a Cav Scout. So I was a 19 Delta for military guys. I was a 19 Delta. So kind of like, the brigade has like 37 at the time in 2017, the brigade had 3,700 people. Okay. All right. New Jersey's strength between Air Force and Army was 6,600. So the brigade had more than half of all guardsmen in the state of New Jersey. And so I knew as a brigade sergeant major that it was a daunting task and I couldn't do it part-time. Like I just couldn't show up one weekend a month and then be
Yeah.
the command sergeant major for 3,700 people, right? So I was blessed with an amazing officer staff, NCO staff at the brigade headquarters, and they put me on orders, Title 10 orders. They put me on a Title 32 orders, full-time AGR orders. So what happened was I put in my notice to ICE, and I knew that me being away at that point in Trump's first term in New York City, like if I had just left and went on leave without pay, there would have been nobody to be the deputy director, and they would have had to put an acting in. So
Yeah.
I decided with my wife that, hey, listen, man, maybe when I come back, I don't even want to go back. I'm just going to retire. I had enough years. So I made the call to retire before we deployed. So I deployed, came back into COVID.
Whoa. Yeah. Another war.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me ask you then. So your role with ICE was like deputy field office director. What does that actually mean to the people that don't even, a lot of these people, all they think of ICE is the guy who snatches people off the street or somebody standing with a riot shield. Reality is, and this is what I'm trying to bring to the real world, is like ICE is a lot bigger than that. And that's why I wanted someone with common sense to come on so the real world could see somebody speaking that's not stood behind a plastic thing, throwing some smoke grenade and and then it just, all people see is the negative. So I wanted to get it from the horse's mouth, which is you, Scott.
Thank you. Well, I mean, listen, there's an old adage, right? Like you're not going to change the minds of people's minds that don't want to be changed, right? So there's people out there that, they use terms like kidnapping, Gestapo, Nazi, like whatever they want to use. Okay. But ICE is not doing anything different now than it did when I first came on in the INS days. Okay. So, people think due process. If the due process for non-citizens, non-Americans is found in 8 CFR. All right. So if you look that up, it's the Code of Federal Regulations that govern due process for people in this country who are not citizens of the United States, because immigration law is civil in nature. Okay. And Congress, and they intended it to be that way. It's a separate arm. So admin arrests they're legal. They're legally binding. Like ICE isn't the only one to use admin arrests, right? But these people, they want to talk about, well, it's a misdemeanor. Yeah, no, it ain't. It's a criminal offense. You can get charged with it. And I implore you and your viewers to do some research now about how many prosecution cases along the southwest border are being done right now for people illegally entering the country. It's alarming, man. Like my entire career, I've never seen numbers like they have in the last 2 months. I believe like in the southwest border now, I think like they must be processing every third person as a criminal entry. So
what
anyway,
is it? Just people just trying to come back round again? Like everybody's trying their luck again?
Yeah, you get those people that can't fly into an airport that have been removed, and they try to come in through the land border. But I'm talking about even people who've never been here before. If they come, there's a good chance now if they get caught, they're getting prosecuted, and it's a federal charge.
Yeah.
So if you get caught, they're never able now to adjust status later on. So the government.
You see, that's the crazy thing I don't think people understand is, but it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, because of social media and all these platforms, right? There's so much misinformation out there that people just believe like whatever they want to believe because it makes them feel good, right? Like me telling you that due process for non-citizens, right? People are going to be like, that's BS. They're in the United States.
It's the mess deck. You can curse. You can speak how you want, man.
This is not
CNN. You can.
Well, they're gonna claim, well, no. The Constitution says all people. Yeah, listen to me. If this was criminal, they would be entitled to this, and that. But because they're not citizens in the INA itself, it tells you if you entered the country within the last 2 years and we prove that you are a recent entrant, you're not entitled to a hearing. You are entitled to expedited removal, different sections of the law. And these people out there don't understand that, because you got politicians out there running around like Mikey Sherrill, Andy Kim, Cory Booker.
Oh,
The list goes on, and McIver, Boss Baraka. You got all of these politicians that are using these people by giving them
for
the
an
false.
agenda.
Yes, and they're using them for their agenda. And so, when you tell people that they're being mistreated,
But
inspectors have
Scott,
been, yeah, go ahead.
they're not saying is, Scott, is if we were to go to Mexico, me and you, let's just go to Mexico and we say, you know what, I kind of like it down here in Cancun. Let's just stay a couple of years. We stay a couple of years and finally they get hold of us and say, hey, you two gringos, you shouldn't be here.
You're
right?
out. Yeah.
Nobody's going to come no Mexicans are going to come and stand and say, hey, guys, they're nice people. They have a right. You see, that's what, it's such a flip side. It boils my blood, Scott, but let me ask you a question. What is it most civilians completely misunderstood about ICE right now, as I would say?
Just the law. What you witnessed, right? Okay. What you witnessed in Minnesota isn't something that ICE has done in that capacity in my entire career. Like, I've never jumped out of a box truck in a Home Depot parking lot and chased people down and then just grabbed them, right? And then tried to figure it out later, right? Everything that ICE ERO does, which is that's what this is all about, is enforcement removal operations. Everything that ICE did was predicated off of an alien file.
Right.
And that means there was no guesswork. We weren't just walking around town. Look, I worked in New York City. If I really wanted to, I could have hit every deli, right, along Broadway, Lafayette, Church, okay? And every single day I could have walked in and just been like, you, show me your papers. We've never done that. We never did that. Now, if I was looking for an individual maybe in a deli and I had to question somebody, I may ask them, right? Because they're present. But what you saw was CBP, Border Patrol, doing something what we used to call area control. Completely different, okay? So everybody kind of said, oh my God, ICE is out of control. ICE is out of control. If you look, those guys were CBP, they were Border Patrol, different agency, different bosses. However, it all fell under one umbrella at the time, which was DHS, Homeland Security. And so there's this big PR campaign that's got to go on, but it's never going to change people's minds.
Yeah, but it doesn't help, right? Like, and you brought up the name Mickey Sherrill because I'm a veteran like yourself, and I represent this community in New Jersey anyway, the veterans community, and especially in the mental health side of things. And she said all these promises coming into office. And I felt, after Murphy, I thought, we're going to get a veteran now. We're taken care of. Yeah. And then she goes to places like that and just embarrasses herself as a veteran. Like the stuff she's doing on the news, it's embarrassing for New Jersey, man. It's really embarrassing.
She's been wrong on every single allegation. Right?
Factually, yeah.
Yeah. She says, well, they won't let me in. Look, we don't have to let you in. You're the governor of the state of New Jersey. You're not Congress, right? You're not on the oversight. You have to get permission like everybody else. And what these people don't realize is this, okay? During the day at a facility, if you've ever worked in a facility before, there's lockdowns, there's counts, there's movement, there's rec, there's chow, okay? And these people, like, they do it when they know, oh my God, they're going through a count. And then they'll start banging on the door. And ICE is like, listen, I can't, Congressman Kim, I can't let you in right now. We're conducting a count. Now, people in the law enforcement community that have done corrections, that have done law enforcement work understand that, right? But that's the part that these politicians do. They play like, look at us, we're trying to get in and they're denying us. How do you know there wasn't a medical emergency in the facility that the staff is responding to? Maybe there was something and they had to lock it down. So what these politicians do is they play mental gymnastics with people, right? And ICE is like, listen to me. If you think the Geo Corporation is going to serve food with maggots in it while Congress people are there and violate a contract worth over $1 billion, you're totally insane. You're insane. I mean, imagine you as a company owner knowing that there's $1 billion contract, 15 years on the line, and you think if you knew there was maggots in the food, you're going to have your staff serve it to the inmates? No, you're not going to do that, because lawsuits would happen. And, if you violate the contract and they come in and do these inspections, they're going to pull you from the contract. It's a violation. So,
and let's remind the people at home as well. These people are not on vacation in there. That they're not, are they? It's three squares and a cut almost.
It's worse than that, right? Look, if you follow me on X, okay, if you have an X account, follow me.
Yes, sir.
I posted some stuff today. There's over 23 organizations in the state of New Jersey, NGOs, that are funding all of the commissary for these people, these detainees, attorney fees. And there's actually a group called SOMA. If you look it up, SOMA, they're out of Milburn. It's a monthly subscription, and the minimum contribution is $55 a month. And they have, as I looked before I came on, they were over $120,000 and that's just for commissary fees. So these guys are eating chicken teriyaki, they're eating yellowfin tuna, they're eating hot Cheetos, honey buns. I mean, I have it on my X account. I posted the menu of the commissary. The commissary's been sold out 3 straight weeks because
they get the money on their books from that organization, right?
The detainees ain't paying for it. These organizations are giving them $200-300 in their commissary account, and then they're going down there and they're buying whatever they want. The commissary's been sold out. They've had record sales at Delaney Hall in the last month. Record.
And these liberals don't tell you that when they're banging on your front gate, do they? They're not saying like we're here with commissary replacements.
Listen,
that's just incredible, man.
That's just one out of the 22 groups that I have on my X account that we've tracked. Make the Road. I mean, all of these people, these organizations, these church-based groups, all these people, these detainees are not going without. They're being represented. They're being fed. They're being housed. They're given medical care. And if you look at the numbers, right, at Delaney Hall, you have a better chance of getting health care at Delaney Hall than you do in any state facility in New Jersey. So think about all the American citizens locked up in the 9 state prisons. Have one of these politicians ever done an unannounced visit on a Memorial Day weekend, banging on the door at Jersey State saying, let me in, let me see? No, they don't care. They don't care.
No, they don't, because they're criminals.
Right. So,
and that's the irony of it, Scott. They're criminals in one hand, and in the other hand, you don't see a criminal. And that's the irony of this whole conversation.
I think the sanctuary city policies are stupid. It doesn't protect anybody but the alien. It doesn't protect the community because, you get arrested for a crime in, let's just say Elizabeth, right? You and I go out and we tag team some dudes. We beat him bad, right? Okay. They come and they charge us. Well, there's bail reform. So you and I aren't going to go to jail, right? They're going to give us a desk appearance. We're going to get whatever. We walk out. Okay. Now, that I'm looking for a guy who's already got a criminal record, right? He does this. And instead of calling ICE saying, hey, we got this guy, not only was he convicted of that crime before, he's committed other crimes, but we're going to release him back into the community because our illustrious politicians in the state of New Jersey want to give a big FU to Donald Trump. That's what this is all about.
Yes, it is. Yep.
This isn't about keeping communities safe, protecting them. ICE isn't harming these communities. Listen to me. It's all propaganda. It's all mental gymnastics. Yeah. And the politicians are really good at it. They're really good.
They are. And a lot of it's avoidance as well, because I'm going to be honest about this. There's just so much news crap going on right now. And then they just use this as an excuse because.
Do you follow a guy named Jolly Ginger?
I've heard of him, but I don't follow him. I'm going to look him up now. You mentioned this
guy up, man. He is an absolute tool, right? He did like 4 years in the army vet. He's a big army veteran. Him and this other guy, they army vets when Trump, got into office, they were down at Union Station down there in Washington, D.C., protesting the National Guard, and they were doing all this stuff and walking around screaming. He's down at Delaney Hall. He's a professional protester, right?
That's that guy I saw on the news, right?
The
Mouthing
white,
off, I'm a veteran. I
big beard.
served overseas. Yeah, clown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy was like an intel specialist or something. Like I think he was like an E4, and but they hide behind "I'm a veteran" thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
what does a veteran have to do with common sense? The state of New Jersey, I'll give you an example. Our budget was so bad. Our budget was so bad that Murphy and them got together and they broke up the Department of Veterans Affairs, and they split it up into to two groups, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what group homes do we have in New Jersey? We have one up north, right? And we have one down south. We have all these homeless vets. They yet to come up with meaningful legislation to help vets. They talk about it, right?
Yeah.
But they don't pass nothing. So, I would have loved for Mikey Sherrill maybe to show up at the Menlo Park Veterans Home, or the one up in Paramus where these people are sick. These World War, we still had a couple of them, but no,
Veterans.
She goes to Delaney Hall. She didn't even go to a parade.
No.
Because she hates Donald Trump so much. She's got TDS to the third power. And they all believe that their only issue to campaign on is immigration. So they want another Minnesota in Newark. They're not going to ever tell you that to your face, but that's what they want. And I want your viewers to understand something. You watch any of those videos from Delaney Hall. Those ICE people are professional. They show a lot of restraint. I'm telling you, they show a lot of restraint. Okay. But I'll explain this to you the best way I can. You, me, and some other veterans, right? We're in the unit. What MOS were you?
I'm a British commando, so I'm a Green Beret.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Right, brother? So we have a fob. Okay. And in that fob, we have some high value detainees, and they send Nico Scott and 7 other guys out in the front. And they're like, you guys are the QRF team. What is our job? To protect the fob, because we have a TOC. We most likely have our TOC in there. We most likely have high value detainees that are maybe where we're getting our human intelligence extracted from, right? So we have a lot of things going on. And then most and foremost, our precious cargo, which would be our troops, right? So we can't let nothing happen to the fob. Take that and flip this around. ICE is responsible for the welfare and the security of every detainee in that building. They're also in charge of the facility itself and then the employees that work there. So these people are like, well, they're outside. Yeah, because if they weren't, you'd storm the facility. If you breach it, we have serious problems. So what the politicians, again, are doing, using optics, going, hey, they'll show people during the day singing Kumbaya and eating jelly beans, right? And then as soon as it gets dark, right, these maniacs, these Antifa left-wing, whatever they're called, I don't even want to call them. Yeah, they're not left-wing, right? They're just...
They use that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
They purposely incite. So they waited for employees to leave, and now they're banging on their cars.
Yeah,
right?
and that's...
Women. Imagine, and I told my wife, I'm like, if that was you in that car, I would tell you, hey, man, as long as they weren't banging on the car or trying to get into the car, stay calm, just let people do their jobs. But if they started smashing the windows, gas it, right? And if you run people over, your defense is going to be you feared for your life. I mean, you have it on video. And
of course,
sure enough, that happened the other night. And what did they try to do?
Remember that Range Rover guy in New York as well, many years ago, with the bikers as well.
Absolutely. Same thing. That's a great example, right? So, so what they try to do is then take that optic, put it on social media, and put that 20-second spin on it, like ICE is the aggressor. ICE isn't the aggressor.
It blows my mind that, and I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, but I really don't care at this point in my life, that we want to protect our country so badly, but then when it comes to protecting our country, we want to be so loose with it. It's like, which one is it? Like, do you want, and like you say, if Donald Trump hadn't won this last election, these still people will, well, we don't know, do we?
Oh, no, we know. Listen to me. If Donald Trump didn't win the election, there'd still be a mass migration happening, right?
Yeah.
Human trafficking would be at an all-time high again, right? More and more children. There was 400,000 to like 500,000 that were like given away to people who weren't even vetted.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous, right? Look, I felt for the Border Patrol because it was a mass migration that was coordinated, right, and funded by taxpayer money. These nonprofit organizations, these non-governmental agencies, they were flying overseas to South America, giving these people classes. They were giving them phones. They were giving them calling cards. They were giving them classes on what to say when they arrived at the border. And
I
so
saw that. Yeah.
all these people claiming that these people political asylum, no, it's not political asylum. There's a threshold for political asylum. Okay.
Yes,
And
there
that
is.
threshold is pretty high. However, why most people claim that is because it's a long process. So what do we do with somebody while that process is going on? If you just say, hey, man, you know what? I'm from Guatemala and look, all I did was come here to work. They're going to say, okay, well, listen, man, there's no work here. You're expedited removed. Here's your order. You're flying home next week on the plane. But if I claimed asylum, I'm going to get a credible field hearing. I'm going to get somebody, they're going to come and interview me. And I'm going to say like, hey man, the guerrillas came down. I used to be a cop and the guerrillas came, they beat me up. They threatened my family. They did. Okay. Well, there might be something there. Okay. So we're going to release you into the interior. And now that hearing might take 5-6 years. In that 5 or 6 years, they're having kids. They're getting married to United States citizens. Like all this other stuff is happening. And then what happens is, for the majority of the time, that claim goes out the window because now they're adjusting status a different way. But we've given them 5 or 6 years to do it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And you're for that or against that?
There's no way. Like, listen, you come to the border and one thing we always lacked was detention space.
Yeah.
Donald Trump made a concentrated effort, his administration, to fund ICE and give them more beds. And it's obvious that during that surge, they could have used more than 100,000 beds, right? Because listen, man, all I got to say is like for any American, right, who thinks that like this isn't a problem, just take a look at Europe, all right? Look at Portugal right now, okay?
Yeah.
Portugal is going insane right now. So is,
the UK. Look at the UK.
Yeah. So these people, they don't understand that they're not coming here to assimilate into American life and build a better future. They're coming for one reason and one reason only, and that's economically. That's all they want, money. And you know how much money leaves this country in remittances annually to all these countries? It's staggering. I would say, yeah, I mean, just to Mexico alone, I think last year, Mexico alone was like $68 billion left this country just through like Western Union and all that other stuff, sending money back home.
Yeah. And we live check to check here as veterans, as just regular citizens in America, tax-paying citizens. Listen, I'm going to put it out there. I have a lot of Spanish friends, a lot of my wife's friends who my wife works with. They're all immigrants. I'm an immigrant. As you can tell by my voice, I came through a different route, and I don't mean like over a border, a different route. But what I'm saying is I have so many friends here who are immigrants, and they say the same thing, man. They don't want their kids mixing with rapists. They don't want their kids mixing with jihadi Joe down the block. I don't want that. So things like ICE, to me, protects my family when the police department can't protect it.
I mean, I want to bring something up. It's going to sound like crazy, right? But it's so easy to say that ICE is racist, right? Like it's racist because, on any given day, if you were to purge records and find out kind of like who was arrested that day, a majority of them are going to be Latin names, Spanish names, right? You have to also understand we have Mexico, Central South America attached to the same continent, basically, right? So, like, it's not like we're getting people from Azerbaijan or we're getting people from Turkestan, coming across the land border by the hundreds daily, right? No, in that you had Chinese, you had people that were European, you had people that were Russian, former Soviet Union, you had it all, right? But the overwhelming majority of people who illegally migrate here daily is Central and South Americans. And by virtue of that, they're Spanish, right? Or they're Latin, right? Like they're Latin, not Spaniards, right? They're Latin. So not to sound ignorant, but like that's just it. And then you get like people, like you get the Chinese that fly to Mexico and they come across the border.
I saw that.
You don't think we arrest Chinese? You don't think we arrest people? We arrest people, every nationality you could think of in New York City. I mean, one day we were going after Panamanians. The next day we were going after Russians. The next day was Albanians. The next day we were going after, you don't get a lot of Brits. You don't get a lot of Irish because they're visa waiver cases, right? So unless some Irish guy, which we, on occasion, we had them, they came here on a visa waiver and they overstayed and they were working as a bartender and like nobody even knew. And then all of a sudden the guy got arrested and he got deported. It's not like they go and say, okay, well, you're not from Central or South America, so you're good. We'll figure out a way for you to stay here.
Hey, Scott, I'm going to tell you a story, right? A little funny story, just to interrupt you there.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the early, I would say around 2010, I was dating a girl in Miami. My wife's going to kill me for this story, but anyway, I was dating a girl in Miami. And and then that was how I came over here on the visa waiver.
Right.
It gives you 90 days.
Right.
And then me being the genius that I am, I thought, you know what? Let's just go to the Bahamas. It's a cheap flight. Spirit Airline was still around back then. And so we nipped over there for the weekend. My dumbass didn't even realize that they have immigration from Border Patrol in the Bahamas. So they said to me, I was probably a millionth person ever to do this, like every day. They said to me, listen, you've got a return ticket we see on file here.
Right.
I always had one because you could not fly from Europe back then without a return ticket.
That was part of the agreement. You had to have a return ticket.
Or the airline was responsible for the fine. So long story short is the guy said to me, he said, listen, you look like a good guy. You're a veteran. I see all that. I'm going to let you back into the country, handle your business. Your flight leaves tomorrow at 9:00 from Miami. He said, go in, handle your business, be on that flight. If you're not, you are not welcome back in the United States for 10 years. And I'll mark that onto your file. I said, you know what? Respect that. The whole flight, it was like the saddest, oh man, my life. Now I've got to go back to England and tell everyone I failed. But the long and the short is I respected that because I didn't want to get banned. And then I went back and then I came across the right way to New York, through New York. But the long and the short, what I'm trying to say here is for all those people listening that think that it's a bully beef situation, it's not. There is a correct way. And yes, all right, what's your opinion on the lottery when they stopped doing the lottery? Did that give you more problems?
I mean,
the visa lottery?
With anything good comes something's bad, right? So this as a dad, this as a soldier. Whenever somebody tries to do something good, people find a way to expose it, right? And then abuse it. And this is the problem with almost every single immigration benefit. It's kind of like people will abuse it. So when they find out it's being abused, they're going to say, okay, stop. We're not doing this no more. Like right now, everybody's talking about the H-1B visas, right? We have to get rid of them. Yeah. Why do we need to bring people from India here to do a job that an American can do, right? We have people here that could do computer programming. We have computers in the United States. We have universities that teach it. We have it. We have all these colleges. We have nurses. We have hundreds of kids that are going through nursing school here in the United States. We don't need to import them from another country, right? So, back in the day, it was a big joke, right? If you ever went to the hospital here, like in New Jersey, the first thing somebody would say was like, I bet your nurse was Filipino. Okay.
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to sound cliche.
But I mean, awesome people. I don't have a problem, right? But then you wonder like, wait a minute, but we have so many universities here in the United States that offer nursing, and nursing has always been a trade or a skill that most American women would go to college for. Like I knew at least a dozen that, what are you going to do? I'm going to college for nursing. Started saying to myself, well, then why are we bringing all these people in from other countries to be nurses? Now, you may need some for languages, like, hey, if you have a high population of Filipinos that live here, you may need to have a Filipino nurse who speaks the language so they understand, right? Maybe they don't speak proper English. And I understand those situations, but the fraud with H-1B now is through the roof, right? It's getting exposed every day.
Yeah.
More and more fraud is being exposed. So to go back to your point, right? Had you not left the next day, you would have never gotten a visa. Like 10 years, it would have taken you probably 15, 20 to come back, and you're not even a criminal. It was just that you violated it. So it would really be up to the people in Europe to give you back a visa. Go, hey, we tried to get this guy once, right? And he didn't do the right thing. Should we give him another visa? And the answer might be no. But if you got married and all this other stuff, well,
yeah, but Scott, I violated it. It was my responsibility. I was trying to be as slick as. So, like, and I'm man enough to say that if I got caught, I got caught. And like people should stop complaining about this because it's real life, mate.
Why do you think that we have more people? You know how many people we have in this country that came here legally and just overstayed? You know how many, you would have been one of millions that do it every single day, or thousands that do it every day. The goal is to get here legally, because that opens up other doors for you if you ever get caught. You understand? Where the illegal entry doesn't. Okay. So when these people say, well, I came to this country legally. Yeah, but you overstayed. You purposefully violated the terms and conditions of your visa. And now you think, well, I got a B2 visa. I remember at one point in my career, right? At one point in my career, trying to remember what year it was, the United States finally made Colombia a visa waiver country. Okay. They tried it, right? Within 6 months, it had to shut down because everybody they were all overstaying. People were just overstaying, and they basically said, no, you're not doing it, right? Like, that's it.
What happened recently with the George Biden agreement? Everybody, like my wife is Haitian, right? My wife's been here since she was a kid, but my wife's Haitian, so I live around the Haitian community. In fact, I used to have a restaurant in Bloomfield, a Haitian restaurant.
Okay.
I know so listen, I've been around the communities, but listen, that's what they used to call it. The Joe Biden scheme. We're coming over on the Joe Biden program. Like, it was like, you didn't even need like H1 or HB. Everybody was coming on the Joe Biden program.
Right.
And so many people came over. It was like, I noticed an increase in rental prices going up in that period. And there was so many people cramming people in Irvington into like what was meant for like 6 people. They got like 15 people. And it was like safety hazard, a health hazard. It was more pollution for like garbage. But the long and the short is, if there was a fire, because everybody was cooking on whatever they were cooking on, their own cultural dishes, then there's a lot more people going to die. And people just seem to forget about all this. Like, it
taxes. Listen to me. I want you to think about there's 900,000, and I'm going to give you the short and I'm going to give you the high. There's probably anywhere from 900 to 1.1 million illegals just in New Jersey. I'm not talking about people who are legally here as legal permanent residents with a green card. I'm talking about illegally here.
So just to clarify, people who came over the border without permission, criminals, people who just basically should not be in the state of New Jersey. Right. That's what you're saying.
They overstayed their visas. Like they came as a visitor and they never went back or whatever. So there's anywhere from 900,000 to 1.1 million. And that's kind of like conservative, right? Those people use every one of your hospitals, your Medi centers, their kids use the schools. They use our roads. So people are like, oh, well, they pay tolls. Listen to what I'm telling you. The benefits of having them here. If you got rid of 900,000 people in the state of New Jersey tomorrow, you would notice an immense difference.
Well, half your businesses would close, first of all.
But still, guess what? You would notice a huge impact in traffic, congestion, schools, right?
Yeah. Well, we do now in New Jersey. You must admit, if you're a realist, you do notice it since Trump came into power. Like, even New Jersey, I noticed it's a lot more quiet than it used to be.
Well, I think because under Biden, there was nobody that feared ICE, right? Like, nobody feared them because they weren't out on the street working. Like, they basically were told, there was a policy where if I knew you were a criminal or you knew I was a criminal, you knew you were the officer and I'm the criminal, and I was arrested for distribution of cocaine, robbery, maybe just a larceny, right? And you knew you knew that I was here in the United States. You knew I was in New Jersey. You opened up the file. You did your work and you're like, I saw that dude. Okay. You couldn't even arrest me under the Biden administration unless you took that information, sent it to Washington, and got permission from people in DC to go and make that arrest. And that even covered people who were like re-entries after deportations that were criminals. They were like, we can't arrest them. Well, what do you mean you can't arrest them? They're like, we have to get permission from HQ before we lock anybody up. They have to know every single case that we're working on. And then toward the end of Biden's term, they tried to act like they were getting tough on immigration. So they unleashed them again and said, okay, we'll start making arrests now. You know what I mean? Like start expedite removing people back to their countries directly from the border. So, these arguments of like, I hear this, right? The one thing that I can say from experience is Donald Trump hasn't changed any laws. Donald Trump
is enforcing them, isn't he? He's just enforcing them.
They opened up the playbook, which is the INA, and they said, why aren't we enforcing this? Well, because we didn't have well, you're going to get the manpower. Start enforcing that. Why aren't you enforcing this? Oh, well, because, nope, we're going to give you people now. Start enforcing that. So in other words, there were things on the books that even in my career, I was not able to do because we didn't have the resources to do it. So like the courts, I'll tell you a funny story. Right when I left, I was signing a notice to appear for an officer, right? One time. And this is 2018. Yeah, it was like October of 2018. And I'm in New York and the guys came upstairs with a file and they said, hey boss, can you take a look at this file? And I check it for legal sufficiency. I make sure it's good to go, and I go through it and they brought it to my attention because they were going to make this arrest. And that's just the way it was. So I go, where's this guy? They're like, oh, he's downstairs, right? So I look, the guy's court date was 2022. It was October of 2018. His first
like 4 years away.
His first court appearance was 4 years away.
And was he somebody that we needed to be worried about, or was he just some random
he was,
Joe
he was here in violation of the law, right? That's all we need to know is like he was here in violation of the law. But it shouldn't take 4 years to prove you're here illegally. I got you. Prove to us that you're here legally. But there's so many loopholes in the immigration law. And that's the problem with, well, they're going to hire an attorney. The attorney's going to be like, you have any kids? No. Are you married? Do you have any relatives that are citizens? You have this? Yeah. This is what they do. And then, it's after 4 years, it's time to go to court. And then all of a sudden, the attorney shows up and says, we need an adjournment. My old attorney quit. I didn't have an attorney. So the judge goes, okay, 6 months. Now that turns into 5 years. It turns into 6 years. And then they're waiting for something to change. And then just when you're getting ready to go to court, magically everybody fell in love. And now the guy's married to a U.S. citizen and they filed an I-130 and a 485. So now you don't have to put him in deportation proceedings. Now you wait until that gets adjudicated. And that, it's crazy. It's a crazy system. So
let me ask you a question. Yeah. Moving on to just another topic, because I got a couple of things I want to ask you.
Sure.
Some of these protesters look organic, to make it nicely, right? They're organized. From your experience, where do they get these guys from? The Portland people, the Seattle people, the people that were down in what is it like a website I can go on and just sign up and like when I'm unemployed I can like go on a mission to go just be an asshole.
You could go to like crowds.org, right? Like, and they hire you as a protester. You just go online and put in crowds.org and websites like that. They're all over. There's Signal chats. There's Signal chats. There's WhatsApp chats. There's chats everywhere where you go in and you can sign up like the fuckice.org, right? This moron created this thing with using AI. It had no security, right? In one day, 18,000 people in the DC area and all that signed up and started putting their names and addresses into this thing. It was not secure, right? And there was people saying, well, I can't protest on Saturday, but I could cook and bring food down, in these chats. It's insane. Like if you follow me on X, just go through and I post it. I post
But
the whole.
they're asking them, they're going up to their faces. Some of these like young journalists, they say, so what are you actually protesting? There's like everything. Yeah, but what does everything mean to you?
Nah, it's
These fucking Nazis. That's all they ever say is Nazis. And just to go back to something you mentioned earlier, like I think the biggest problem that, and this is my personal opinion again, that everybody's so scared of in America now the is the racism word. Like, especially as a white man, we're so scared of being called a racist that we'll go along with all this garbage, like stuff that we wouldn't have done like in our grandfather's times, that we're just cool with it now because we want to fit in, because after all these protests with the George Floyd and all that back in the day, everybody is a white person, and I have mixed children. So I have a dog in this fight. They're all so scared to say, oh, I don't want to upset the other side.
I mean, look, I don't like talk about like stuff like that because like to me, with me in my life, everything I've done, I've served along Hispanics, Asians, Blacks, whites, Indians, Native Americans.
And we don't have colors in veteran. We're all one. We bleed red. We're all the same.
But we didn't have that. We didn't have beef. Like we all got along. I learned how to play spades. You know, I learned how to play dominoes. I learned what, I learned what spice in food was. You know what I mean? I showed them Italian culture. I showed them different things that I grew up with, right? We shared experiences and we shared cultures. And so, as a sergeant major of a brigade in New Jersey, I want you to think of this. Where do the troops from the New Jersey National Guard come from? They come from our inner cities. They're not coming They're not coming from Hightstown, Princeton. They're coming from Newark, Irvington, East Orange, West Orange.
They're not coming from Millburn.
That's exactly right. And Short Hills. They're coming.
They don't send their kids to things like that.
Right. This is the very thing that you have to understand. My soldiers all knew what I did for a living. It was no secret. I never kept it a secret. I didn't hide from it. If they asked me for help, they knew if they had a problem, they can come to the Sergeant Major and be like, Sergeant Major, I got a problem. I'm really embarrassed, but my mom caught a deportation, right? And I really don't know what to do. She's my mom. And I'd say, all right, Troop, like, I need to know everything. Like, you can't tell me half the story, right? You got to give me, what do you mean she caught a deportation order, right? And then come to find out, she was granted voluntary departure 5 years ago. And she just decided she wasn't even going to leave then, right?
Yeah.
And so she overstayed, and then she got married, and then she thought because she got married, she was going to adjust her status, and they were like, no dice. You entered illegally, you did this, you did that. So, and I would go to my soldiers and say, okay, listen, man, I'm going to try to get you help, right? I'm not the attorney, but I am going to try to get you help. And I can't recommend an attorney for you because that would be like an ethical violation. Like, you know what I mean? Like me.
Yeah.
So what I did was I gave them exactly what I would give the detainees, a list of legal services that were free on our website. And I would say, make these phone calls. But going back to my point was they're Hispanics, they're Blacks, they're Central and South Americans that are here, so they didn't look at me as some Nazi. I was the Sergeant Major. I treated everybody with dignity and respect. And ICE agents will do that until they'll still do it. You cross the line, but I have to do what I have to do to take you into custody. Like unfortunately for a deportation officer, the case is finished when you hear the word deportation. I'm going to arrest you, but if you have to go through court, deportation doesn't have anything to do with the court. The court is affecting a court order. Yeah, you have to understand, like, this is a very sensitive topic because it involves humans, right?
And we're all humans at the end of the day.
At the end of the day,
we all have
humans.
moms, we all have dads, brothers, sisters. I get it.
Right.
I get it.
And you know what? I would tell you, I should have done this. I did it for an interview once before and I just forgot to do it. Like, cause this all happened today with you. It's not like this is staged, right? Yeah. This happened literally within a couple hours.
This afternoon. Yeah.
My whole thing is my entire workforce, the minority are white, are Anglos.
Of course.
I had more Hispanics. I had more Caribbean in New York City. I had Barbadians, I had Panama, I had Peruvian, I had Colombians, I had, you know, you go look at my officer corps, and
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the overwhelming majority were the minorities, and there was a change. You know what I mean? Like maybe in the 80s and 90s, not so much, right? And then it started this gradual shift where the force started increasing. But the reason for that, like in New York City and in New Jersey, where are these people coming from? From your own populations.
Yeah.
So look at the population booms in New Jersey. You have Hispanics have exploded in Patterson, Elizabeth, New Brunswick. I got agents from Patterson, Elizabeth, New Brunswick. They come from these communities.
Yeah.
Same thing with the military. These kids are graduating high school and saying, I'm going to join the Army. Okay, come into the National Guard. Okay, they're coming from our own communities. It's not
That's
like
what a lot of these people don't realize is that what they're seeing on the TV, right,
it's bullshit.
those people are not from New Jersey who are fighting with the ICE agents, right? It's the people who are sitting in New Jersey tonight watching an ICE guys with people coming at them, right? They're thinking, oh my God, those are people from New Jersey getting injured and stuff. Like, listen, you should be worried about the ICE agents who are your community.
Right.
They are cousins, sisters, and nephews
Right.
of the people in your thing. Because I know for a fact being here, the length I've been here, that Newark Police Department, Patterson Police Department, Paramus Police Department, back in the day, they used to only, when they had the old system going, they only used to recruit from their own township anyway. So most of the people in Newark who are stood on that front are of immigrant parents, immigrant brothers and cousins, nephews. So when you're throwing rocks and bombs and jumping on their cars, you know what? You're actually doing it on your neighbors but all they're seeing on like your CNN or on these ones that are glorifying it, they're just seeing the terrorism side of it. And it looks horrible to people that have never seen real life.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you kind of brought it up, right? Because it's kind of about racist, right? I want you to look at every single protest around the country, Minneapolis, Portland, and Newark. How many minorities you see out there? Minorities. Do you see out there on a daily basis creating havoc? It's not the minorities. It's not the very Hispanics. It's not. There may be a few sprinkled in there, right? But overwhelmingly, they're Caucasian. Well, when the Geo people were coming out of the facility the other night, they were smashing these people's cars, their windshields, right? Did you see the people get out of the car? They were blacks. They were like Haitian. They were, they might have been from like the islands, right? Okay. They weren't white Nazis. They weren't these guys with swastikas and, like that is like the stupidest mantra you could use. It's disgusting. Yeah. I want you to think about this, how disgusting it really is. They call Delaney Hall a concentration camp. I'm telling you right now, if I went to any state prison and I told the state prisoners, I'm giving you one shot tonight only, right? You could leave this facility and go to Delaney Hall. I'm telling you, I would have about 20 buses filled, probably in 2 hours, headed to Delaney Hall. They'd rather stay there than at the state prisons. And yet, they talk about Delaney Hall. Trust me when I tell you, man, I've been to some of these facilities, these big Geo facilities. Listen, they just don't want Delaney Hall because it helps ICE accomplish their mission.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, right? So if everybody's talking about concentration camps like Delaney Hall and stuff like that, why are none of these like these so good do-gooders? So El Salvador opened, what's the name of that place he opened down there? What's called Seacot, right? Now, to me, I would call that a concentration camp. If I'm going to call anything a concentration camp, like, to be honest with you, like people stacked on shelves and stuff like that, but nobody's like you don't have protesters out there throwing bombs over the walls every night.
You know why? Because those people want those criminals off the street. The people of El Salvador are finally getting to enjoy their own country. They get to walk around.
Safe.
They're safe, right? So you call it what it is. We come up with all of these bail reform. There's no statistics that prove. No, you know what? When people know there's no consequence for their actions, right? Things don't get better. They get worse.
Of course.
Okay. So when was the last time you heard a friend of yours say, I got pulled over for a blinker violation?
That's the thing. That's
Go
the
ahead.
thing. But then I can't say it because automatically people say, oh, you're white. You get away with it. But that's the thing. People don't bother for minor things anymore. Cops are so not into these minor things.
You know why? Because what does it do? That guy on Route 1 didn't use his blinker. I drive up and down Route 1, Route 9, the park. I don't see anybody using blinkers in New Jersey, right? Like, I don't even know why the manufacturer puts them on anymore, right? It should just be because nobody does it. And then when something happens on a highway and they're switching lanes erratically, right? And a cop pulls them over, first thing out of their mouth is, why'd you stop me? But what do you mean, why did I stop you? You're changing lanes and you're not using a signal. People will be like, that's ridiculous. No, it's a law. Like it's a civil penalty. So like cops don't even do that now. So cops don't even write reports anymore for stuff they used to write because it's meaningless now. Because these people that get them, it's laughable. You could laughable. Like you live in Princeton.
Yeah, but I'm not a Princeton kind of guy.
No.
Just for the record.
Yeah, but my point is, go downtown Princeton and look at what goes on down around Princeton. They have all these.
Yeah, it's a different world. And that's what I'm saying. It's not the world that I'm accustomed to.
Exactly.
I'm a working class man.
Right.
But don't get me wrong. I live in this area for a reason because I have 2 young children.
Yep.
And I don't want my children growing up in an inner city because I don't want them to have to suffer what kids in the inner cities do. And me and my wife, we sacrifice everything that we have right now to be able to live in America where it's bleeding me dry as a veteran who gave my life for this country, right? To live every month. I'm on a deficit before I even get paid.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart when people are all just complaining all the time about bullshit stories.
So you're probably going to have viewers, right? That like, they probably won't agree with like a lot of the stuff I said, and that's fine, right? But they don't understand the full extent of the law. They don't understand the consequences. They don't understand that, like, we used to have a saying when I was on the job. It's not over until the alien wins. That was our immigration system. Like there was.
What does that mean though? What does that mean?
So you would arrest somebody and you like slam dunk. Okay, this guy's deportable. I got the warrant, like all of this stuff. You have everything you need in the file, right? And then you're like, okay, you double check it, you triple check it, you go out, you make the arrest, you come back. Next thing you know, somebody filed for this. They filed for that. They filed for this. And it just goes on. And it's like they get 10 bites at the apple, right? It's not deportation is only final when the guy is back in their, or the persons are back in their country.
But even if they're a criminal, it's the same way. Say I've been a child molester. I could just.
Well, I mean, that's a kind of a tough one, right? But like, I'll give you an example. I worked in New York City, right? This sounds pretty harsh, but I worked in New York City, and I used to go across cases where, like, let's just say a guy fondled a child, a 13-year-old, and he did this and did that to a 13-year-old, okay? And he had no criminal record. Okay. They would go into the court system and they would get into that court system. And then all of these things would start happening. And then they would say, well, this guy's a first time offender, no priors. He served in the military. He did this. He did that. He was, the kindergarten wrestling champion. He sold Girl Scout cookies for he's a great, member of our community. Right. And then the judge is like, yeah, okay, well, all right, we're going to knock this charge down to endangering the welfare of a child instead of like, a rape or a molestation so it gets downgraded to endangering the welfare of a child. That was not a deportable offense in New York. It's a misdemeanor. Now they would get like 5 years probation, but immigration law.
Whoopie-doo.
But this is the problem. Immigration law is different. Immigration law doesn't care what you got. It's kind of like what you could have been charged with. So if it's anything up to 5 years or more, it was an aggravated felony. So you got written up as an aggravated felon. Just because you didn't get it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have got it. Somebody worked out a plea deal. And that happens. They've changed criminal codes across the country to protect non-citizens from being removed. Systematically changed codes. the way they charge people, the way they prosecute them, the way they give them plea deals. It's like, I'll give you one. You get a year or more, aggravated felony. Okay, we go to the judge. Judge, my guy is a B2, blah, 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 blah. If he gets a year, okay, 364. 364 isn't a year. It's
And
not
what's
a
an
year.
aggravated felony for people that don't know?
Well, like, robbery, any aggravated crime, right?
Violent crime then. Violent crime.
Yes, right. But my point is like grand larceny or something like that. If the penalty could have been a year and you get judges go, nah, it's not a year, 364 days. Now in the order, it doesn't say 1 year, but the regulation says 1 year or more. So what they started doing.
So they did it on purpose.
Absolutely.
To snub ICE.
Well, they did it to circumvent this ICE so they wouldn't make them deportable. So you have attorneys going into court vouching for these people, saying, please don't give them a year, give them 364. Their first time offender. He worked at Jiffy Lube and fixed my grandmother's car when he was 15. He did it for free. He's going to go to Votech next month. Like they come up with all of this crap and people buy it.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy,
the sad part about it is American citizens don't even get that. Nobody rewrote codes so that U.S. citizens get less time. But they did it for another class of people.
Of course, yeah. Well, they do it for every. See, yeah, but that's a source of it because everything's done for everybody but veterans. You see, my point about all these guys coming home and having limbs missing, having significant mental health issues, right? And then they break up with their wife because it's normal that relationships will break up with guys coming back from overseas, right? They get put on child support. There's no safeguard for a guy on child support who can never work again.
Listen, man, I know from personal experience. I know a ton of veterans that stayed away from the VA because they were more of a problem for the soldier than they were a benefit to the soldier. Do you know what I mean? You got a real issue, and they tell you, we can see you in 3 months. 3 months? No, I need it now. I have like a substance abuse. Oh, well, there's, even the veteran homes, we can't get you in now, but come back. We're full. What do you mean you're full? You know how many calls I used to get as the brigade sergeant major? Hey, man, can you find a place for a veteran? And I'd start calling all these places and we would make 15 phone calls before we would get maybe somebody to take a vet, a guy that just got home. So, to go back to all of the rhetoric, like, listen, this is not about anything else but power. And, like the more people we have in New Jersey, the more these politicians represent and the more people are more seats in Congress, so why do you think if you took 900,000 to 1.1 million people out of the state of New Jersey, you're going to lose some seats.
Of course. And they're not going to be red seats, are they, in New Jersey?
We're not red.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Right. So, I think Murphy almost lost to Chitterelli, right? Was it? Yeah. Didn't he run against Chitterelli the second time? Yeah.
I honestly don't remember. I've never been a big politics guy. Yeah.
It was close. Okay. Yeah. But we are, for whatever reason in the state of New Jersey, we're blue. I can't figure it out. Right. I don't understand how people who voted blue for 35, 40 years in this state and people are moving out. Every person that I knew that was a blue voter, or I'm an independent. I'm more of a libertarian. So like I'm right in the middle. Like I don't trust the government in certain aspects. You know what I mean? Like I love my freedom. I love my liberty, but don't tell me how to live. Like it's kind of like my philosophy, right?
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that.
So like I don't go Republican. I'm not a MAGA. I've never owned a fucking Trump flag, a shirt.
No.
Did I vote for him? Absolutely, I voted for him.
So did I.
Right? I'm not going to deny
it.
But I since the day I bought my house, I have an American flag in front of my house. Right? I'm not a white nationalist. I'm an American. I'm proud. Like that was something I always wanted to do, was own a home and be able to raise up the American flag. You know what I mean? And see it fly in front of my house. The military has been good to me. This country's been good to me. But what I go back to in all this is all those people that voted all those years that were voting Democrat, they're the ones that started moving to Florida because their taxes became too much. They couldn't survive here anymore. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. You voted for all of this bullshit.
And then abandoned shit.
And now all of a sudden, your excuse is it's not affordable anymore. It's not affordable because we don't hold the politicians in the state of New Jersey accountable for spending our money. Like Mickey Sherrill just spent $20 million. Oh, yeah. So in the town I live in, our school budget was short, $12 million. So, of course, there's Board of Ed meetings, there's this, there's that. Sorry, people of your town, we're raising your taxes another 2%. It was 2% the year before and 2% the year before that. But now, in 3 years, it's been up 6%, right? The budget was 12 million. So we had a cut here, we had a zig there, we had a zag there, right? Okay. Mikey Sherrill overnight takes money. He goes, oh, I found 12 million. Here, we're going to give 20 million to the illegal immigrant detainee fund. You don't think that's a slap in the face for 60,000 people that live in this town? And they're like, wait a minute, you're okay with them raising my taxes because you took money from us. That's why we're short. You shorted me. You gave Newark $1 billion and yet you shorted me. And now the citizens and the people in this community have to pick it up because they don't care. They don't care. You have a choice, right? So all these people that live in Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, you go, where are you from? Jersey. Where are you from? New York. Why are you down here? Man, I'm tired of paying that tax shit. But let me ask you a question. Who did you vote for 20 years?
Yeah. They jump ship and then they just leave all the poor people that are stuck here, you know?
Well, listen, man, I have kids, right?
Yeah.
You know how hard it is for a young kid? And just think about this. You try to find a home anywhere in East Windsor or in the town I live in under $450. These kids that are just starting out, they're paying $600,000 for a home. Their mortgage payments are like $5,000, and then their taxes are like $9,000-$10,000. Who can afford that?
I see. I'm not even on the ladder yet. I'm still trying to get on the ladder myself. You know, when COVID was not good to us, we lost the restaurant, so all my savings went. So I've still got to get on the ladder, and it scares me, man, every day to think about, like, because my wife's adamant not to leave New Jersey, and this state, like you say, like, who's getting houses now? Like, and then we've got that big my neighbor BlackRock next door, who's buying everything from anybody anyway. It's like everybody's coming into New Jersey, like you got data centers coming in, everybody, but they're not giving anything to the state of New Jersey. They're going to benefit. They're going to benefit.
In my town, they sold like all this farmland and it was all sold off, right? They built shopping plazas and humongous warehouses, right? And these people they're tax exempt for like 15 years.
Yeah. To bring them into the community. But these data places, they just need space. They don't need tax breaks. They're making trillions. It's crazy.
But
it's crazy.
But think about all the corporations that are leaving New Jersey now.
A lot. Yeah.
And why are they doing it? They're like, okay, listen, I can't do this anymore. Exxon's leaving now. Another company's leaving. And so, you know, that hurts our workforce. That hurts these young kids. You know, it's really sad to me. It's really sad that like when you look at like Delaney Hall, just look at Delaney Hall. You're fighting because you're saying these people are being held unjustly in inhumane conditions. And I'm telling you, there's people that live in your town, my town, these inner cities that are living a lot worse than those people at Delaney Hall. Okay? Because I'm sure there's plenty of kids in this state that are going maybe hungry tonight, right? Or they may have not eaten a meal in 2 days. You ain't fighting for them. You're fighting Donald Trump. This isn't about Donald Trump. Donald Trump's not in New Jersey. We don't care about Donald Trump right now. What we want is we want peace and order, right? Hey, Mikey Sherrill, you want to keep making policies like I'm making an ICE ban on masks. Okay, great. Who's going to arrest you? You think a trooper's going to come and arrest an ICE agent for wearing a mask? Like, I would love to see how that's going to work. You know what I mean? That would be like an ICE agent driving down the highway, seeing a state trooper pull somebody over and then telling him how to do his job. Oh, I'm going to arrest you because, well, whatever. You're like, are you crazy? So,
Of course.
but they get clicks. So, Mikey Sherrill's a hero. You know what I mean? But you know who's winning? The NGOs. You find out where all the money is going, and you're going to see why all these people are protesting, because they're getting money pumped into them and they're funding this.
A lot of NGOs. People think NGOs are doing all the good in the world, but to be honest with you, they're almost like a sad things happening mafia. Like
it is. And it's funny. There's not one detainee in Delaney Hall that's paying for his commissary meals. They're gaining weight, right? They're, like I told you, I wish, do you ever go to like your kid's school and see what they feed them for lunch?
Not recently, no. But I get that. I get what you're saying, though. Yeah.
Okay. I see it every day at a high school. I see it every single day. Kids in school are paying $4
for a slice of pizza.
For a slice of pizza. One slice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. One slice of pizza, $4. Okay. There's probably half the school that they don't buy lunch because they can't afford it. So it's free. You know how many pizzas a day are coming out of there? $4 a square. It's coming back on the taxpayer. It's coming back on us. And then, so like when it's time to be fiscally responsible, people get all crazy, right? They're like, why are we charging kids $4 for a slice of pizza? Well, the company's got to make money. The cafeteria people got to make money. I got to pay these people. Okay, but $4 for a slice of pizza? That's a little ridiculous, right? I don't even think they charge $4 in a regular pizzeria.
Of course they don't. It's dollar in most places in the inner city, like where these people are getting ripped off at $4. I'm saying.
So why aren't these people banging their chest, protesting companies like Aramark, Sudoku, all these? Why aren't they doing that? They're ripping the people off. They don't care about that. They don't care. So their plane tickets are bought and paid for. They're like, I got nothing to do, so I'll leave Colorado and fly to Jersey. I'm getting paid $20 an hour, $25 an hour to sing Kumbaya and maybe throw rocks and bottles at officers. And then, we have command tents set up. Like, who goes to a protest with command tents?
Yeah. Well, who goes to a protest? This is my side of things, and anyone wants to put in the comments to argue with me, fine. Who goes to a protest with a military grade gas mask, biker gloves? When I say biker gloves, the ones with the knuckles that are protection. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That sounds to me more like somebody going, like back in the 80s in England, going to a fight, going to a football hooligans or something.
It's not a peaceful assembly, right? It's a riot, and they're there to riot. That's what they want. And if your viewers are too afraid to call it what it is, right? Never in my life have I, and like, there's been some bad things that happened to us in the military, but I could never imagine even acting that way towards the organization, right? There was a way to do it, right? There's a way to do everything. And so you either do it at the ballot box,
of course,
or why aren't they down in Trenton, right, protesting Mikey Sherrill and all these other people in the state of New Jersey? You don't see the other side, right?
Trenton is the quietest place. I went down there just to cut you. Sorry.
Yes.
I went down there to try and grab an interview with her in January, right? Trenton is a ghost town. There's more state troopers. I'm not talking about downtown Trenton. I'm talking about where the government buildings are, right? Past the courts.
Yes.
You walk down there, it is the quietest place. I was the only car on the street. I saw a trooper. There's a trooper guarding every doorway. I walked in. The trooper he was so nice. The trooper in the doorway. It's like he hadn't seen anybody in like 12 years or something. Like, he was so friendly. I sat down. Mickey Sherrill was obviously flying a helicopter somewhere. So she sent her promotion team down. They came in and started giving me all the run around, like, oh yes, we'll get an interview and all that. I know it was a load of bullshit, but what I'm trying to say with this is Trenton, like, does she even come to Trenton, or is she in DC most of the time?
I mean, she's not in DC, obviously. She's at Delaney Hall. She's everywhere but Trenton doing her job. And then they want to brag about what they're doing. Look, Delaney Hall is a coordinated, concentrated effort. It's paid for. And what they want is they think that they're going to close Delaney Hall. Like they're out there going to close Delaney. No, you're not closing Delaney Hall. You're not going to close it. You're not going to force the government to close Delaney Hall because you want to act like a petulant child, right? You know, they let the health inspectors in. The health inspectors just released a report today. It was all good. They were like, yep, everything was a standard. Everything was this. You know, ICE has what they call, we have these standards called the PDNS, right? And let me tell you something. The standard that a facility has to have, you know, a contracted facility, there's an ACA standard and an AGA standard, right? And they're pretty high, right? But the ACA standard, the PDNS is higher standard than the ACA standard. You only have to meet one standard, right? It goes above and beyond. Okay.
Yeah.
And so these people are being lied to, and it's really a shame that they're being lied to. But at this point, I don't even think, like, even if they found the truth out and you presented the truth to their face, they'd still do exactly what they're doing now.
You mentioned something earlier, which I legitimately believe is that Donald Trump, like there's certain people that have a mental, like PTSD, like you can have PTSD from going overseas, right? And for people, I have PTSD, you know, what I'm trying to say with this is there's a mental illness like PTSD towards Donald Trump. You could tell these people that Donald Trump's just said he's you know, he apologizes for Iran. He's going to give them $1 trillion to fix everything. He's going to release everyone from Delaney Hall and put them all in a luxury condo in Miami Beach. And they would still be like, yeah, but he's still a piece of shit. And then they would still find the next thing to go protesting about. A lot of these people, I would imagine, they're Spanish. And it's not fair on the Spanish people because their mind's automatically thinking, oh, these nasty ICE people. And let me ask you a question, because you get to speak to a lot of these people, because like people like me, like ICE agents are hard to get to track down. They really are. So how's their mental health for a lot of these guys who are having to deal with this day in, day out?
Listen, man, the verbal abuse is the verbal abuse, right? Like you just gotta, it's like anything else, right? You know, you have to block that all out and just focus on what the task is in front of you, okay? And you know this from being a soldier, right? Psych ops is a bitch, right? And these people are trained in psych ops. They're purposely looking for responses. They get in your face, you know, and it's so funny, right? But it's not funny. That guy that got in the ICE officer's face and he's like, I'm going to fucking kill you and your family. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Listen.
He's in jail, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, the problem is, in order for you to say that to somebody, you're a little off. If I have a beef with you, I'm coming after you. Do you understand?
Yeah. Not your family.
Right. I would never say to some guy, you know, I'm going to F you and then I'm going to F, you know, this one and that one. And I'm going to, but that whole entire crowd, they're like rabid animals. That's what they want. They would love to see you die and your family die. They would love to, they would get off on that where like they don't even realize how ignorant they sound. So when he made that threat, now all of a sudden he's like, shit, they locked me up, man. Now you're going federal. You're not going to Newark. You're not going to go.
What kind of thing would he get for something like that? Just so people who may be thinking about going out there running their mouth.
I mean, like terroristic threat. I mean, it all depends. I haven't seen the charges.
Is that what it is? Terroristic for saying something like that?
Yeah. I mean,
well, yeah, it's terroristic, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I come and say I'm going to find
terrorizing someone.
Yeah. I'm going to come after you and I'm going to fucking kill you and I'm going to kill your fucking kids and your wife. That's crossing the line. Like, that ICE officer showed a lot of restraint, right? Because I don't know if somebody would threaten my family like that. Like, let me tell you a quick, really.
Well, I would have banged him out straight in there. I would have banged him out. I would have put my shield down and knocked him out and gone home.
I'm going to tell you a story, right? But really quick. If you have it's like, I'll give you like 3 minutes.
Yeah. Tell me, man.
There's two stories. And they're both kind of crazy, right? I'm flying to the DR and I have a detainee with me, right? And I'm with my partner. So my detainee and I, we get to the airport. I turn the detainee over to the authorities in the Dominican Republic and I give them the warrant. They do this, they sign it. Boom, I'm out the door, right? So I'm walking out of the airport and all of a sudden, right, the cab drivers are like, I'm white. Like they know I'm a tourist. They know I'm not like Dominican coming home, right? So they're like, cab. So like the first guy that came, I'm like, car? And he's like, yeah. So I get my bag. The guy opens up the trunk. I throw my bag in the trunk of his car. I get in the back. I get my phone out. The guy starts driving, and I put my phone on, and now I'm like going to text my wife, like, hey, man, landed. Everything's good. On my way to the hotel, whatever. Then I was going to, like, text work, whatever. So I'm driving from the airport into like downtown Santo Domingo. And all of a sudden, right, the guy's like, Senor Mechkowski, right? And I'm like looking around the back of the cab, right? And my partner, it was a female, and she's hitting me. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I go, what's up, buddy? And he goes, you're Officer Mechkowski. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, oh, you deported me 3 years ago, right?
No.
So I'm like, holy shit, right? So I'm like, I'm going to have to F this guy up. Like if this guy, like, now I can't see his hand, like he's got I see one hand on the steering wheel, and I'm thinking like a gun is going to come like across the seat. So yeah. I'm like, I'm ready for this dude, man. I'm like, I already know I'm going to probably die, but like, I got to protect my partner. Right. So I'm like, we're stuck in traffic, and the guy turns around, and I'm not looking at him. I'm looking at like hands. Right. But now I start, man, like, your military training. I'm thinking like, idiot, he could just have the gun pressed up against the seat and start like popping rounds. Like, what's a car seat going to do to a bullet? Right.
Nothing.
I jump over the seat. I jump over.
No.
The guy like freaks out, and he's like, ah! And I'm like, what are you doing? And the guy's like, I'm sorry. So anyway, I'm like, we're like 3 minutes from the hotel. We get to the hotel, and I get out, and I want my bag. And the guy goes to me, yo, I'm really sorry. He goes, yo, I want to tell you something. He goes, 3 years ago, I didn't like you. He goes, you arrested me. You put me on a plane, you deported me, you did this. He goes, I thought my life was ruined, but I came back to the Dominican Republic, and my life turned out great. I got a job. I actually have a family now. And he goes, and you know what? I want to thank you because you treated me like a man. You didn't arrest me in front of my family. Like, you didn't handcuff me. You told me to come with you. When we got, around the corner, you stopped the car. You did. So I was like, shit. And my partner's like, there's no way we're staying here. This guy's going to come back. All right. So the next one, I'm flying home, right? So I'm in Honduras. So I go in, and I'm going to eat with the locals. I'm going to hang out. This guy's staring at me. And all of a sudden, he's like talking to me, and I'm like, I'm not even paying attention. I'm like, yo, cerveza, I'm getting food. I'm eating. I'm in the community, right? Dude, I arrested this guy like 7 years prior to that, and I had deported him, right? So I'm like, I'm eating my food, and the food was delicious, right? I didn't taste anything. So all of a sudden, the guy pulls out his wallet and drops my ID card, my business card on the table, and he's like, you, and I'm like, fuck. I'm like, oh my God, right? So this partner is like, well, what is it with you? You're a shit magnet, like everywhere we go, and I'm like, hey, guy, listen, how's everything? And, we talk, and the guy, same thing. The guy goes, you gave me my dignity. You gave me my dignity. When you were deporting me, you didn't treat me like I was a criminal. Like, it was part of your job, and I understood you had to do it. But, you didn't you didn't chain me like I covered his hands like I did. Anyway, the point being is there's thousands of those stories out there.
Yeah.
So these all,
but you don't hear that.
Right.
You only hear the negative. That's 1% of the 99% of the I stories.
Yeah. Nobody laughs at people. Nobody's laughing at them because it's not funny. Like, we get it. Like, we understand. Like, it affects families, right? So you don't laugh at it. You find a way to kind of mitigate this by saying, look, there's still an opportunity for you to maybe come back. But in order for you to do something right, you have to fix what was wrong. So as long as you're in the United States illegally, you can't adjust your status. So if you leave and you go back, the day you go back, the clock starts ticking again. You understand? So there's been people that I've deported that have come back, and they reached out to me like in email. They're like, I'm back. I'm a green card holder. I'm like, that was 10 years ago. And they're like, yeah, man, I got a waiver. Like, there's so many success stories to being arrested. Some people actually get a benefit. Like, it's so.
And that's why I reached out to you, Scott, because I thought it was about time that something on social media that shows that the ICE agents are not the boogeyman, that, as to speak. Like everyone's trying to make them out to be. Listen, I understand. You hear that story. Oh, I got a guy snatched up, and then it passes. It's like Chinese whispers. Everybody hears it, and it gets worse and worse. And there probably is some people that probably did deserve to stay in the country that have been deported. But the long and the short is, we're as a society, we're only getting more and more. Like, you know what I mean? And we can only sustain financially.
Yeah.
You know, we do need migrant workers, but like I say, the government also, might chip in my little bit in. It does need to work on better structure. Because listen, there is guys who have been here 10, 20 years that have paid taxes for 10, 20 years, right? I'm not saying that. And I think that there should be a individual case study done. And if they can go to court and then they'll get someone to vouch for them and stuff, they should be allowed. They shouldn't automatically.
Some of it is they're so afraid to come out of the shadows, right? Like there's ways of doing things, right? Like, look, the bottom end, the bottom line is this: Americans love cheap labor. Like, I'm like, anybody who says that, I know people I'm friends with that are like right-wing people. They'll be like, why did you do it? Why didn't you just go down to the Home Depot and get like 3 people and bring them over and pay them like $100? They would have cleaned your whole yard. Like, what? Why would I do that? Why? I'll do it myself. But like, well, no, dude, but like, don't you have anything better to do? Like, so they go, I got these guys, they come and cut my lawn. I give them $25. I give them a bottle of water and $25. That's not who I am. How about the au pairs, right? Au pairs. You know, there's an entire program for people to come here and be nannies, right? No, the cartel, like, what people don't realize is, for every person that makes it across the border, the cartel gets money. I'm not talking about the drug cartel. I'm talking about the cartel itself. These people have to pay the cartel. They're here. They're working off a debt. These people have their passports.
Let me tell you something quickly on that before we go. Anyway, when I had the restaurant in Bloomfield, and because we just opened in the December, and we needed staff. I'll be a hypocrite if I said I didn't. So we had some Mexican girl come to work with us every night, and she left it around, let's just say an arbitrary number, 8:00 at night. Every night she had a man who was waiting for her every night. And then I started looking through the curtains some nights, and it was almost like one of those E350 buses. He said he used to come in sometimes and say he was her papi. You know, but she used to tell us, no. Her family were back in Mexico and they keep her, and she's not allowed to go until
that's right.
They paid off the debt.
That's exactly
the thing
right.
is, so every time she was getting money, she was giving it to him. I was used to watch around the corner, paying him. And in the end, me and my wife said, we can't do this because we're getting involved in something that it doesn't feel comfortable. We had to let her go.
You were paying the cartel. Look, these nannies, these people that come here to work, they have to pay these people off. There's a debt. Chinese cost more than like Central Americans, right? These debts are over 20 grand, 80 grand. You know, did you ever notice like I did a case once, right? We had an immigration case once where we hit this thing, and it was really by accident, right? I don't know if you ever watched the Pink Panther. It was like kind of like Inspector Clouseau. We did something. We found this big case. Well, these guys investigated this case. They were moving people in Chinese restaurants from like Massachusetts down to Virginia. So they would take a crew and then they would move them to like Jersey. From Jersey, they'd go to New York. New York, they'd go to Connecticut. And they would only be in these places for like a month or 2 or 3 at a time. Not long enough to know where they even were, like where they were at, right? And we cracked this entire like human smuggling chain, right?
Yeah.
You tell people about it and they're like, come on, bro. That's BS. You're like, you just don't understand the game. The cartel loved the mass migration because they were making billions of dollars coming across the border. They put people up in stash houses till they pay.
Yeah.
They're all over the border.
People in New Jersey because we're not so close to the border, people don't see that side of it. All they see is the humanitarian side of it, of them thinking that their son could be taken and put in another country.
Yeah.
But there's more to it. Let me ask you a question. Now, we're talking about human trafficking. What do you think's going on with this Epstein files, man? What's your honest opinion about the Epstein files going on? Do you think there's more to it, or is it just another extreme?
I am so done. I'm done with the Epstein files, right? here's what I want, right? Here's what I want. I don't know if we'll ever get the truth, right? I don't know if we'll ever get the whole thing, right? But there's one thing in life that I know is it's true. It's happened. It's happened to me before, right? Karma never forgets an address, my friend. You understand?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
if listen, is Jeffrey Epstein dead? Is he alive? Who
Palm
killed him?
Beach, his name.
Right. Like, I don't get it. I don't get into that because I don't believe half of what I see and 3/4 of what I don't see. Right. Like, in other words, did we land on the moon or didn't we land on the moon? Like, I don't know. Like, we haven't been back to the moon yet. Like, we haven't put a man on the moon, but we did it in the 60s. I'm not into that. Like, I'm kind of like, listen, I want justice for the victims. But let me explain. But I'll explain this to you, right? I want justice for all victims, right? Sex crimes, child abuse, human trafficking, forced labor, you name it. Do victims ever really get justice in the United States? And the answer is no. Do you know what I mean?
And if they do nearly get justice, they'll be made such a scapegoat. They'll be they'll be harassed. They'll be treated. They'll be downtrodden, and there won't be a victim no more.
That's exactly right. And the victims, this is the hypocritical part, right? Bill Clinton, a grown ass man, as a president, tried to lie about getting fellatio in the White House from an intern. She's 19, 20, 21 years old. They made Monica Lewinsky the bad guy. She became the butt of all the jokes, the dress, the this. She was the victim there. He used his power, his position, his authority, his command over her, and then into a relationship. And yet they shamed Monica Lewinsky. These people aren't going after Bill Clinton and calling Bill Clinton a pedophile. They're calling Donald Trump a pedophile. Like, it's unreal to me. Like he's not ever been convicted of pedophilia. Listen, the victims themselves even said they never saw him on the island. People testified that they never saw him on the island. As a matter of fact, I really do believe he was the FBI informant that started the whole thing with Mar-a-Lago.
So why he doesn't release them then?
Right.
So why is he so, him and Cash Patel,
I
Cash
think
Patel's
it's bigger.
acting like a school kid caught with candy in his, you know what I mean? Like, did you steal the candy from the candy jar, Cash?
Okay, you're from Britain. You're from the UK, right?
Originally.
I'm going to ask you.
I'm an American now, though.
I'm going to ask
proud
you.
American.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you this question, right? When the royal family was told prior to the release of the Epstein files, what did they do with Prince Andrew? They banned him, right? They basically said, "Hey, man, you're not part of the royal family no more. Like, you're out. Like, you're done." I truly believe he's all over them files. And that our government called the royal family and said, "Listen, some shit is about to come out." And
the ambassador did, didn't he? The British ambassador, Mendelssohn, he tipped him off.
My point.
But I was in service with him. I was on ship one time, and he was a helicopter pilot. There's something about helicopter pilots, isn't it? They're all corrupt. But anyway, he was. But I always said there was something bad about that guy. I met him and I worked for the Queen too. I got to serve the Queen.
But think about it. They were tipped off way in advance. And they basically said, I believe that they basically said, the royal family needs to distance yourself from this guy because this shit's about to come out. It's going to implicate the royal family, right? So they basically said, pack your shit. You're not here. You're not here. You're not there. You're on your own, right? So when it came out and people saw it, nobody blamed the royal family, right? They blamed him, right?
Yeah. But they're saying there's more to that than meets the eye now.
Absolutely. And I truly believe that.
And rightly so, because at the end of the day, we as a veteran over there, the British, I served the Queen and country. I signed the contract to the Queen, right? So you're basically representing, like in America, we represent the flag.
That's right.
We represent the United States of America. Over there, we represent the Queen. And I did. And I struggle to say the King right now because of all the things that, if it comes out that, but it just turns my blood because anything to do with kids turns my blood. Yeah. But yeah, Andrew's a scumbag, and I'll happily say.
But you asked me, anybody that was victimized by him is never going to get justice.
No. Well, some of them did. Well, no, she committed suicide, didn't she? The most important.
This is my point. It's my point. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sad.
So that's what sucks about the justice system, right? It's designed, in my opinion, to protect the assailant and the people who really need it. Like, you really think that people really believe the bullshit in Whistleblower Protection Act? No, bro. You go on the stand, man, you wind up dead. Like, people are missing. Like, I'm going to whistleblow. Like, who's going to do
Nobody
that?
does that anymore. Whistleblower was that thing in the 90s when it came out, like whistleblower. Every time I know a whistleblower's done a whistleblower, the whistleblower's ended up in worse circumstances than the person who committed it. The person stays in the business.
Listen, you think no one's holding Murphy accountable anymore for like the $3 to $6 billion deficit he left us, right? And then this one comes in and adds to it, and then it's like, I tell my kids this all the time, right? This is what happens with New Jersey politics. This is what it is. It's a big lump of shit, right? And then what people do is they spray Febreze on it, and it smells better, but it's still a pile of shit.
Yeah.
Right? So,
we're the most concentrated state in the United States.
Come on,
and we're
man.
Still the shittest state.
Exactly.
It's between us and California right now, and we're both on each coast, and we both have these blue, like
they're
governors
insane.
Exactly. Yeah. Both of them are crazy because both of them hate Trump.
I even think, like, I know a lot of people that voted for Trump, right? And you ask them, like, let me ask you a question. Why'd you vote for Donald Trump? And they're like, you know why? Because
there was no middle ground.
Yeah. It's like, you know where he's coming from at all times. Like, you know, if you see him, he's getting ready to talk, you know, he's going to say something that's just going to, like, you know, I could do without the name calling. I could do without all this shit. But anyway.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just want to ask you this one question, right? You were in the service. So we were in Iraq, and I remember I came home. And so anyway, as I was working in ICE and this and that, I was on the street one day, and they were like, somebody knew my background, and they started yelling "baby killer," right? And I'm like,
had it
right. So I heard this, and I'm like, "Baby killer," right? So I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, you know, you were over there, you know, I said, listen to me. Do you know how many U.S. soldiers, and there were some Brits, there was a bunch of.
Well, we were Allied forces. Right. We were mixed together.
We were getting care packages from the United States filled with like candy, food, whatever. And our soldiers used to put it on our like Humvees and our, you know, and right.
We got banned from doing it because it was giving the terrorists reason to blow up their own people.
That's exactly right. So we were giving stuff out, and we're like, kids that even had food. I remember like teaching the kid how to eat an MRE. The kid was like, you know, like a rabid animal. And I'm like, oh no, we're going to mix this and we're going to mix this. And, you know, we built schools for the kids. We did all of the stuff. Like I don't want to talk about geopolitics, but my point is, like, the American people who would just see a U.S. soldier like, oh, you were killing kids. You're like, you have no idea I was a father.
Hearts and Minds was a real thing. It really was.
That's exactly right.
It really was, man.
That's exactly right.
It really was.
You know, these people, what they know that if they say certain shit, they're going to piss you off. And if you have PTSD and you snap, then you fit right into your reason. Narrative.
Well, I started on Facebook in 2020, 22 Vets a Day it was called. It was like it was going to be a charity.
I belong to it.
Well, anyway, it's not the same one, but it's similar. They're more bigger than I was.
Okay.
But anyway, I stopped it because two reasons. A, I was going through a lot of PTSD myself, and I was getting every man and his dog messaging me about their problems, and I was internalizing their problems, and I couldn't cope with my own. But the most important thing was I would get at least once a week from somebody calling me a baby killer, baby killer, baby killer. You're the kind of people that went to Iraq and napalmed. I'm like, I didn't say anybody napalming, but you may be confused with but it's just a horrible, horrible thing to call someone.
Well, it's the same analogy, right? Like, they don't understand. They went to college, or they heard about it online. Some TikTok influencer said this shit, so it must be true. And then, you know, they go, well, go to Wikipedia. I don't trust anything in Wikipedia, right? Number one. But like, my point is, you know, Google this article. Well, it was an opinion piece by a New York Times writer. It doesn't mean it's true. Like, it says opinion on it. And that's what's happening in this immigration.
It's been going on and on and on. It's just not been on the mainstream media all the time.
No.
So it hasn't, it's not something new. It's just there was a lot more of it because when Biden opened the gates, there's a lot more to mop up.
There's only I worked there almost 28 years, right? The only time I ever saw anything like this was Trump's first term and Trump's second term. I've worked for 5 presidents, right? Or 6 presidents, like the 2 Bushes, the Clinton, Reagan, and Trump and Obama, right? So 6, right? 6.
And just to clarify something quickly for everybody watching this from the horse's mouth, I heard that during the Obama administration, there was a hell of a lot more deportations.
So, okay, true. It's factual. It's true. But you got to understand, Obama didn't have sanctuary cities. Obama had secure communities. He had all these other initiatives. And like we were getting people from Rikers Island, upstate, downstate. I mean, we were getting like 3,000 people a year from Rikers Island alone. You know what I mean? The funniest thing is 2014, that shut off. And, you know, now those numbers were their numbers. There was like millions because there was no sanctuary states or cities yet. And then 2014, New York started it, spread to LA, spread here, spread there. So then Trump comes in 2016, all those programs are gone. And with those programs went hundreds of thousands of arrests. I could tell you personally, as a deportation officer, we did less interior enforcement work under the Obama administration than we did in the Trump administration, the Biden administration. And I go back to, well, the first Obama administration, we worked the streets, like whatever. But the second term, it started to shift to where like they were changing things purposefully so that they would impede us going out. And that was with funding. It was with everything else. But the argument stands. Obama is a deporter in chief because of numbers, but you have to understand where those numbers came from. It's if you go to like, so right. If you go to like, you know, I want you to research this on your own so you don't think it's coming from me, but like use like a search engine, like an AI engine or something. And you know, why was Obama's numbers so much higher than any other president in U.S. history? You know, you're probably going to come up with secure communities, cooperation, sanctuary cities. All of that stuff will be mentioned, right? And then when you start to realize it, it wasn't all it wasn't enforcement that actually generated the numbers. It was programmed.
All right, here we go. ChatGPT told me Obama deported a lot of people because his administration prioritized immigration enforcement more aggressively than many people remember. That was the short answer.
Right. Ask about the differences in policy.
Here he is telling me. The large reasons was large increases in border enforcement resources, more cooperation between local law enforcement and federal immigration authorities, program that identified removal immigrants through fingerprint databases and arrests, and a focus on criminals, recent border crossers, and people with removal orders.
Okay, well, you mentioned the key piece. State and local law enforcement cooperated with these programs, 287G, secure community, like all of this stuff. So like
that's sad, man, that they don't work together. Like law enforcement to me, a blue line means a blue line to me. A red line means a firefighter. I'm sure firefighters from California who work in the mountains and put out trees, and then a guy from LA who puts out apartments doesn't say, I'm not going to work with him. He puts trees out. He's not like, it's so sad that like you signed law enforcement to protect and serve.
It's not the men and women at this level. It's the men and women at that level. You see these guys every day on the street. You don't see these people on your computer screen right now, right? They're like the governors. They're the legislators, the senators, right? They don't understand that for the American people, for the people watching your show, right? Every one of these laws they call racist, they call this, they call that. You understand Congress crafted those laws, enacted those laws so that ICE can enforce those laws. So if the laws are so racist with all of the different members of the melting pot in Congress, why don't they just all get together, right? Leave the president out of it, right? Leave the president out of it. Bring everybody in, put it to vote. Let's cancel the INA altogether. We want to rewrite the whole law, right? You get what you want, we'll get what we want. It's going to wind up somewhere in the middle. They did it in 1996, and that's the product you got right now. So that law hasn't been changed since 1996. But when you think about it, that's not really a long time ago. It's like 30 years ago. So my point is, we have some of the most lax immigration in the entire world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. England has a problem with immigration right now.
Right.
But immigration in England, it's not an easy process. Trust me.
Like, I'll give you an example. Trump said, if you want to get this visa, you're going to have to pay $100,000, right? So I started laughing, like the golden ticket and all this $500,000, right? He does stuff like that because he's trying to root out fraud. Like, in order for you to apply for that, you have to have $100,000. It's going to be legit because you're not going to submit an application for $100,000, right? And then it's going to be fraudulent and you're going to lose $100,000 because it's going to get denied because we found fraud, right? Like, if you're putting $100,000 into it, you're going to make sure it's the letter of the law. So he's trying to exclude all the bullshit and say, well, so-and-so, you want to hire this guy? Great. It's $100,000. Apply for it, right? You want it. These corporations ain't going to pay $100,000. Like, most of the biggest scam right now is the H-1 visas. It's the biggest scam in the planet. Like,
and what's this H-1? Why is that a scam?
With special workers, like, just.
Oh yeah, anybody can be a
Nico,
special worker.
I'm going to
right?
ask you to have your viewers just like the H-1B fraud. It blows your mind, right? Like, there's a visa. It's a U visa. I'm going to tell you this really quick. The United States went into this whole thing about victims. We were talking about victims, right? So that's the witness. There's like an act for like women who were like violated, right? Like, so like a domestic abuse people, that kind of stuff, right? So it's like a U visa, right? I used to laugh. Everybody coming into my office in New York City would come in with a black eye. And they're like, my husband beat me up. I had to leave. And now they're able to file for a U visa. They would go and file a police report, right? It would be on file. And then they would go through like this. There was no guy. And then, you go looking for the guy to arrest him. The guy's like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, I never touched her.
Yeah.
A lot of it's just bullshit, right? And they find a way to abuse it, just like asylum. And then it's like abused and abused. So one attorney will call another and say, hey, man, Nico, I represent Nico. Nico filed an asylum claim from the UK. And this is what he said. He said he was gay and that, like, because he's gay, he was going to get whatever, right? So he got we fought, and this is how we did it. Okay, I'm from the UK. You gay? No. Can you be gay? On paper? Yeah, sure. Why? And that's how it works. They they share information through these networks. So they find a way to beat the government. But these people are enriching themselves on the very backs of the people they say they represent. It's not cheap, Nico. It's not cheap.
Oh no, man. Listen, man. Some of these people are just living in la la land. That's the problem. Like the real America that me and you served for. It's a different generation, man.
Yes, brother.
But anyway, listen. I appreciate your time, man, and we'll have to carry this on at another time.
Yeah, listen. Thank you for reaching out, man.
No, I want to speak to legit, real people, man. I'm not into influencers because they're just telling what they need to get across what is bullshit. Listen, I'm no Sean Ryan, but I have a passion for what I do, and I'm a veterans advocate for mental health. I've lived in New Jersey for over 10 years now.
Is the truth. I could tell you this, right? I've been sued throughout my career, frivolously, obviously. People would drop lawsuits. I've never was charged with abusing anybody, use of force. I never had a use of force complaint against me. I've had lawsuits filed against me, I held them illegally and whatever, and it goes to court, and the court's like, nope, he was fine. It was in accordance with the law. My thing is, like I told you before, right? I'm a firm believer in karma, man. Like, if I see somebody in need and I can help them, I want to help them, right?
Yeah, me too.
I'm not going to kick somebody when they're down, right? So, I approached my job like that. Like, I tried to make it as dignified as possible. Like, hey, you got this problem. This is what's going to have to happen in order for us to, you're going to come with me. We're going to figure this out. Hey, if I have to detain you and deport you, that's the way it's got to be. But you can't do anything here. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to go from like being a deportable aggravated felon to being a USC. It's not going to happen. You have to go back to make it right. And so most of the men and women I worked with, and I say most, they were all the same. Like, we would talk about it. Like, there were times we made an arrest and we were like, yo, man, like the detainees were thanking us as we're dropping them off at jail. They're like, yo, man, thanks for being like cool, man. Like, you fed me, like you let me make my phone calls. You didn't break my balls. You kind of like, it was just business. And we would tell them that was used to be a sign we had. It's business. Like, it wasn't personal.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll leave you with that, my friend.
But that's how I want to leave it, man. Like, ICE is not how you see it on the news, guys. At the end of the day, these are just humans like you and me doing a job every day that are just getting harassed every day for doing a job. And we'll leave it at that. Brother,
Brother, thanks for your service.
God bless you, man.
Thank you.